welcome to the debate. When you walk into a medical clinic, you usually see this, very orderly waiting room. You see a few people sitting quietly, magazines neatly stacked, the receptionist typing at the front desk.
Right. It looks totally managed.
Exactly. It feels controlled. But what you do not see is the invisible waiting room. And it is this chaotic, panicked space where, frankly, 38% of patients are essentially pounding on a locked door and no one is answering.
Yeah. We are talking about the phone lines.
The phone lines. It is the great silent crisis of modern healthcare.
It truly is a paradox, isn't it? Like, we possess incredibly advanced medical technology in the examination rooms, We can sequence genomes, perform robotic surgery, but the front door, the absolute most basic mechanism of getting in touch with your doctor, is structurally broken.
Completely broken.
It's a bottleneck that is literally suffocating the entire system, burning out the staff, and, leaving patients completely stranded.
Exactly. And that crisis of accessibility is what we are dissecting today. We're looking specifically at a solution called ClickPhone. It's an AI voice agent designed exclusively for medical practices. So the debate before us is fundamentally about how we solve this bottleneck.
Right.
I will be arguing that automating clinical communication through an AI agent like ClickPhone is, a necessary, evidence-based evolution to solve a quantifiable breakdown in patient access.
And I will be taking the position that while the bottleneck is undeniable, we all see the numbers, delegating the initial layer of medical communication to artificial intelligence introduces unacceptable risks. Medical intake requires a level of human nuance that an AI agent simply cannot safely replicate, regardless of how flawlessly it optimizes the clinic schedule.
All right, let's start with the sheer mathematics of this crisis. Because the numbers we are dealing with here are not just operational metrics. They represent a systemic failure in patient care.
Sure.
We are looking at a 38% rate of missed calls across these practices. More than a third of patients trying to reach their doctor are met with a ringing void. And on top of that, clinic staff are losing 4 hours every single day simply managing the telephone.
Wow. 4 hours.
Every day. They are trapped acting as switchboard operators instead of, medical professionals.
Look, the numbers are stark, I agree. Losing half a workday to the phone is grueling.
It dictates a structural necessity. This is no longer about a luxury or some slight digital optimization. By deploying an AI voice agent to handle routine tasks, answering questions about opening hours, providing directions, handling appointment scheduling, we fundamentally resolve this accessibility crisis. The AI acts as a pressure valve. It reclaims those 4 hours, allowing human medical staff to step away from the phone and focus entirely on in-person patient care.
I acknowledge the severity of the bottleneck. A 38% missed call rate is a massive, dangerous gap in care. But I firmly reject the proposed mechanism as a flawless or even safe solution.
How so?
Because a medical practice is not a standard e-commerce customer service center. And we cannot treat it like one. The stakes are simply too high to optimize away the human element at the front door.
I see why you think that, but let me give you a different perspective on what is actually being automated here. We aren't automating the practice of medicine. We are automating the administrative drag that prevents the practice of medicine.
Okay, let me specify my concern first, because it strikes at the core of how this AI operates. The ClickPhone model specifically features what is called Erstanfrage, Erfasten, basically capturing and routing the initial request.
Right, the triage stage.
Exactly. This is the moment of triage. The system boasts about eliminating a 62% rate of manual rework. And by manual rework, we mean things like taking notes, creating entries in the clinic CRM, the patient relationship database, and organizing callbacks.
Which is a huge time saver.
But I argue that optimizing away that 62% is a highly dangerous metric to prioritize. When an AI handles the nuance of a patient's initial intake, we are removing critical human oversight at the absolute most vulnerable point of the patient journey.
That's an interesting point, though I would frame it differently. When we talk about that 62% of manual rework, we need to be crystal clear about what that actually looks like in a stressed clinic right now.
Okay, what does it look like?
It is not a careful, deliberate medical consultation. It is pure administrative friction. It's a receptionist hastily typing a note into an electronic health record or, scribbling a callback number on a Post-it note while 3 other people are standing physically at the desk glaring at them.
But that friction, as you call it, is exactly where human observation happens.
Let me use an analogy here. I view this AI voice agent as akin to an air traffic controller.
Okay.
The AI is not flying the plane. It is not diagnosing the patient or prescribing medication. Its sole purpose is to ensure that the massive, chaotic influx of inbound traffic is structured, categorized, and routed safely to the correct runway.
Right. But
When a patient calls with a standard request, the AI structures that chaos into a clean database entry. It removes the friction so the doctor can actually do the flying.
I come at it from a different way. Your air traffic controller analogy assumes that the data coming in from the planes, the patients, is binary and easily categorizable. In aviation, an altitude is an altitude.
Sure.
But in a medical context, what you call manual rework often contains vital clinical context that just doesn't fit neatly into a CRM data field. Administration is inextricably linked to diagnosis in healthcare.
Wait, how so? The AI is designed with sophisticated logic to capture the stated need and route it to the proper inbox.
Because communication isn't just about the words spoken. It's about how they are spoken. We have to look at how natural language processing, or NLP, actually works under the hood here.
Okay.
Current NLP works by taking the audio wave of a patient's voice, transcribing it into raw text, and then scanning that text for intent and keywords. It strips away the cadence, the breathlessness, the subtle tremor in the voice. I mean, it's reading the lyrics, but it is completely deaf to the music of human suffering.
I understand the limitation of text translation, sure, but the core intent is preserved.
But the intent is often hidden. Imagine a patient calling and saying, I just have a bit of a stomach ache. I need to see the doctor.
Routine request.
Right. To the AI. An AI processes the natural language, identifies the symptom stomachache, categorizes it as a routine request, and creates the database entry. But a human receptionist hears the slight catch in the patient's voice, the shortness of breath, the hesitation.
Well,
The human hears the subtext of acute distress and immediately flags it as a potential emergency. When you hand that initial triage to a machine to save time, you lose the clinical filter of human empathy and intuition.
I'm not convinced by that line of reasoning because it deeply romanticizes the current state of the front desk.
I don't think it does.
It does. You are imagining an idealized receptionist who has the time, the quiet environment, and the medical training to conduct the flawless auditory triage on every single call.
No, I'm just the reality. Backed up by those 4 hours of daily lost time and the overwhelming volume of calls, is a receptionist who is exhausted, rushed, and desperately trying to get the patient off the phone as quickly as possible so they can check in the person standing right in front of them.
Look, I'm not idealizing the receptionist. I'm highlighting the inherent danger of completely removing them from the loop.
But they are already out of the loop for 38% of the patients. That is the stark mathematical reality we have to face here. If no one picks up the phone, there is no empathy. There is no detection of a trembling voice.
That's true.
Experiencing a frightening symptom on a Sunday afternoon is currently getting a busy signal, or a generic answering machine telling them to call back on Monday.
And replacing that answering machine with an interactive AI changes the dynamic, yes, but it doesn't necessarily make it safer.
It completely democratizes access. ClickPhone operates 24/7. It provides immediate, equitable access to the clinic's scheduling and intake system. Furthermore, it operates seamlessly in over 30 languages.
Right.
Think about the implications of that for a moment. A non-native speaker trying to communicate their symptoms to a stressed receptionist is fraught with potential for miscommunication, frustration, and eventual surrender. An AI that can instantly switch to the patient's native tongue ensures that the intake is accurate and that the patient feels understood at any hour of the day or night. It brings a level of consistency that human staff, with all our fallibilities and language barriers, just cannot guarantee.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. Let me tell you why. Accessibility isn't merely about a machine answering the phone at 2 a.m. in a patient's native language. It is about the quality and the safety of the interaction that follows.
Okay.
Let's look closely at some of the other core features this system manages. It handles appointment booking, rescheduling, and cancellations, which are universally acknowledged as the most repetitive, time-consuming tasks in any clinic.
Yes, on paper, an appointment cancellation is a purely administrative task. But in medical reality, administrative tasks constantly blur into clinical triage without warning. Patients frequently elaborate on their conditions when they alter an appointment.
Like what?
Imagine a 70-year-old man calling to cancel his physical therapy session. To the AI, the intent is clear. Cancel appointment, free up calendar space. Action completed successfully. But what if the patient says, I need to cancel my session today because I'm feeling incredibly dizzy and my vision is suddenly blurred?
The AI captures the reason for the cancellation, transcribes it, and logs it in the system for the staff to review. It doesn't just delete the appointment and ignore the context.
But does it know to escalate it in real time? A routine cancellation just turned into a potential neurological emergency. A human recognizes that instantly and says, wait, how long have you been dizzy? You need to speak to the doctor right now.
Wait, hold on. Are you suggesting a Schumann receptionist who has 3 people staring at her in the lobby and 2 lines blinking on hold is currently doing a deep dive clinical interview when someone calls to cancel a physical therapy session?
I'm saying she can catch the cues.
Because the reality is, she just clicks cancel and hangs up. She might not even catch the comment about the blurred vision because she's actively talking to a nurse at the same time. The AI at least consistently logs a stated reason without being distracted.
A stressed receptionist might miss it, yes. Human beings are fallible. But an AI is structurally designed not to look for it unless specifically programmed to trigger on exact keywords. And medical emergencies don't always use the right keywords.
But that is exactly what these systems are programmed to do. We have to look at the safeguards the system operates within. The AI isn't making medical diagnoses, but the design of these voice agents involves sophisticated natural language processing, specifically trained to flag keywords associated with emergencies. If a patient mentions blurred vision, chest pain, or shortness of breath, the protocol is to escalate immediately or advise the patient to call emergency services.
Identifying overt keywords is one thing, but again, you are assuming the data is perfectly clean. Medicine is messy. Patients are vague. They downplay their symptoms.
Right, but
This brings me to another feature, actually, the outbound recall and reminder campaigns driven by AI. We are talking about having an AI call a patient to remind them of a prostate exam or a follow-up for a biopsy.
which is absolutely essential for preventative care.
The efficiency is clear, but the clinical appropriateness is highly questionable. When a human staff member makes that call, they can sense if the patient is deeply anxious about the procedure. They can offer a comforting word, explain the preparation, or answer a spontaneous, fearful question. An AI reminder reduces a profoundly sensitive medical journey to a robotic checklist.
That implies the AI is completely rigid, which modern voice agents are not. They can answer FAQ-style questions about the procedure. But even if we assume a degree of conversational rigidity, the alternative is that the recall call simply never happens because the staff is too busy managing the inbound chaos.
That's a grim alternative.
It is. Preventative care relies heavily on those reminders. If an AI can ensure 100% compliance in reaching out to patients for necessary follow-ups, the net benefit to public health vastly outweighs the loss of a brief human interaction on the phone.
It is a calculation of efficiency over quality of care. It views patient communication through the lens of return on investment, of capturing every interaction.
No, it views it as necessary access.
But patients are not leads, and medical intake is not a sales funnel. By prioritizing a system that eliminates manual rework, we risk optimizing the humanity out of the medical practice. We achieve perfect operational efficiency at the cost of clinical accuracy and human compassion.
I'm not convinced by that line of reasoning because you are separating operational efficiency from clinical accuracy, when in fact one relies entirely on the other. You cannot have clinical accuracy if the patient data is lost in the chaos of a busy front desk.
I disagree that it's an either-or situation.
Well, let's look at the infrastructure of the solution itself, which brings us to another key point. If an AI is going to handle sensitive initial requests and symptom data across 30 languages, the trustworthiness of the system is paramount. The ClickPhone architecture explicitly guarantees that it is fully DSGVO compliant, meaning strict adherence to the General Data Protection Regulation. Furthermore, the hosting is located entirely within the European Union.
Legal compliance is essential, obviously, but compliance is the floor, not the ceiling of patient trust.
It is much more than just a legal checkbox, though. Let me break down why this specific digital framework is fundamentally more secure and reliable than the manual systems we currently rely on. When we say DSGVO compliant and EU hosted, we aren't just ticking legal boxes. We are talking about eliminating the paper Post-it note.
Okay, fair point on the Post-it notes.
Right now, in clinics everywhere, a patient's most intimate medical secret, say a urology issue or a psychiatric concern, is hastily scribbled on a piece of paper lying on a reception desk. A delivery driver dropping off packages can lean over and read it. Another patient standing at the counter can overhear the conversation.
That happens, yes.
The AI encrypts that vulnerability out of existence. An encrypted, EU-hosted AI routing a digital summary directly into a secure electronic health record is infinitely safer for patient privacy than a receptionist loudly discussing symptoms in a crowded waiting room.
That's a compelling argument, but have you considered the psychological dimension of trust in a medical setting? You are equating data security with patient trust, and in healthcare, those are two profoundly different things.
How so? If the data is impenetrable and strictly regulated, the patient is protected.
Because being legally permitted to process EU data does not mean patients will feel safe confiding in a machine. Look at the language surrounding these technologies. To interact with these systems, patients are often invited to speak to a demo agent or to click an orb.
Yeah, that's just UI phrasing.
It is the language of Silicon Valley, of tech startups and software as a service. It is not the language of care, empathy, or healing.
It is simply the language of modern software interface. We are all accustomed to interacting with digital interfaces daily.
Not when we are terrified about a lump we just found. That changes the psychological dynamic of the medical practice entirely. When a patient is frightened, when they are vulnerable, they are seeking a human connection. They want to know that another person has heard their pain, recognized their fear, and validated it. If the very first interaction they have with their clinic is an orb or a demo agent that is coldly processing their symptoms into a compliant data field, you create a chilling effect.
A chilling effect?
Yes. Imagine a 70-year-old man who's been plucking up the courage all week to call about a highly sensitive, concerning symptom. When he finally dials, he doesn't get a comforting voice. He gets an AI prompting him to state his symptoms for a database.
Okay, but
That technological friction creates a barrier. He might withhold crucial information, or worse, he might simply hang up because he doesn't trust the machine to understand the nuance of his anxiety.
I hear that concern, I really do, but it drastically underestimates the adaptive capacity of patients, and frankly, it ignores the reality of their current frustration. Do you know what creates an actual measurable chilling effect?
What?
Calling your doctor's office 15 times and never getting through. Being put on hold for 20 minutes while you are in physical pain. The 38% of missed calls is the ultimate breach of trust. A patient cannot feel a human connection if the human never picks up the phone. They are simply abandoned.
They are trading the frustration of waiting for the alienation of automation. They are trading a broken system for one that actually functions. We have to view this through the lens of resource allocation. The 4 hours saved daily by an AI handling the standard inquiries, the appointment bookings, the requests for opening hours, the multilingual intake, those 4 hours are handed directly back to the clinical staff.
That means when a patient is physically in the clinic, the receptionist isn't distracted by a ringing phone. The doctor isn't rushing through an appointment because the waiting room is backed up. The AI absorbs the operational friction so that the human interactions that do happen can be deeper, more focused, and ultimately more empathetic.
Look, I don't disagree that offloading pure informational queries, like asking where the parking lot is beneficial. Where we diverge is on the boundary of what constitutes a purely informational query in a medical context. The ClickPhone solution, as presented, positions itself as a comprehensive net.
It takes that initial request, and my point remains that in medicine, the initial request is rarely as simple as it seems. It is structured by stripping away the humanity of the delivery.
But the alternative, as we've established, is that the request is completely lost. A lost call is a lost patient. A lost patient is someone who is not receiving care. If an AI system operating securely within strict EU data regulations can bridge that gap 24 hours a day in 30 different languages, it is performing a vital medical service.
In theory, yes.
The mathematics of the current accessibility crisis demands a solution of this scale. You cannot fix a 38% failure rate by simply telling the front desk to work harder or by asking them to listen more empathetically while the phone rings off the hook. The manual model is broken.
Well, on that, we are in complete agreement. The manual model of medical accessibility is thoroughly broken. It is unsustainable for the patients who are suffering in the dark, and it is entirely unsustainable for the clinic staff who are burning out under the barrage of administrative load. The status quo cannot hold.
Exactly. It forces us to innovate. It forces us to implement structural solutions like AI voice agents to reclaim that lost time.
But the fact that the current system is failing does not automatically validate AI as the definitive, risk-free answer for the front lines of patient intake. Yes, we must solve the bottleneck, but as we integrate these extraordinarily powerful tools into healthcare, we have to recognize that medical communication is inherently complex, high stakes, and deeply human. We must ensure that in our rush to reclaim those 4 hours a day, we aren't accidentally automating away the very intuition and oversight that keeps patients safe when their symptoms don't fit neatly into an algorithm.
Which is precisely why exploring multiple perspectives on this integration is so vital. We have to balance the undeniable mathematical necessity of automation against the nuanced realities of clinical care. For our listeners navigating these exact challenges in their own field, I highly encourage exploring the underlying concepts further. Look at how these AI agents process natural language, how they encrypt and handle sensitive data, and consider how technologies like this might ultimately reshape your own experiences the next time you try to reach your doctor's office.
Because sooner or later, we will all be patients trying to get through that front door.
Exactly. Think back to that invisible waiting room we talked about at the start. The phone lines are still ringing. The door is still locked. The question we leave you with today isn't just about who or what finally answers the knock. It's about what happens to the quality and consistency of your care the moment that door swings open.